you really don't understand like running a business, like, legitimately and having expectations for other people. Like the buck stops with me, and I was way too lax.
What is happening, Skid Steer Nation? It is your host, Ryan Deemer. It's another beautiful Wednesday in the central Illinois, and we have another guest for the Skid Steer Nation podcast. Michael Botts is joining us. He owns Botts Grading. He's in North Carolina. He's been in business for a long time. He's got 4 or 5 full-time employees, some part-time help, does residential, commercial, municipality work, and I'm excited to introduce him so that he can share some amazing tips for all of you listening today. Before I introduce Michael, I do want to remind all of you that this show is brought to you by none other than Skid Steer Nation. Head over to skidsteernation.com and find your next skid steer attachment. And if your business is growing and you want it to grow faster and you wish your online presence was stronger and people could really know who you are, what you do, and why you do it, head over to getthrottledup.com. We can have a nice discussion about branding and marketing, and if we're a good fit, we can help you with your marketing needs for your excavation company. Michael Botts, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Me too. For anyone that's not watching on video, Michael's got a badass hat on today. Is that an everyday wear, or did you bust it out for the show?
Nah, I bought this hat a couple years ago. It's a Tilly, or this is not the one I bought then. And I bought it thinking, hey, it's going to be my nice hat. And I wore it a couple times and pretty much my everyday wear now, unless I've got on a hoodie. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome, man. Awesome. So, man, you started this business, 2017? Is that right?
Yeah, 2017, July 2017. So coming right up on 8 years here pretty soon.
That's awesome. And you were a North Carolina DOT employee before that, correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct. I had been working at the DOT for right at 3 years. Or I actually worked there literally almost to the date 3 years, and then went out and started my own thing. And I didn't start grading immediately. I was doing it kind of part-time and stuff, but started actually hotshot trucking. And that got me a truck and a trailer to be able to get a skid steer and haul it and get it where I needed it to go. So I done that in January and then purchased my skid steer in July of 2017.
All right. So I got to ask, because I feel like hotshot trucking, you either absolutely love it or it becomes like the worst job you've ever had.
Well, to say a job to me is a little bit of a stretch. I think it's a lifestyle.
Yep.
The only way to really make money is just get in that hot lane and get on the road. And I don't know, I might be getting a little ahead of myself, but I had already started doing some work and I had a landscaping company at the time. I was cutting about 20, 25 yards. And so I was needing to be home on the weekends to manage that. And so it kind of affected the income. But again, it was a step in the right direction to get necessary tools to move the equipment around and get going. So
that's awesome.
What made you say I loved it for sure, but I ain't gonna say I hated it either.
All right, you're an anomaly, because I either find guys that love it or hate it, and there's very few in the middle.
Well, it depends on what part you're talking about. So
I know, but that damn phone rings 24/7. Doesn't matter what day or what time, and you got to go.
Well, I was working for I was subcontracted through a local company here. We had about 30 trucks running or with them. And so we had dispatcher, we had all that. And it's not like what you see on TV, but it wasn't bad when I knew what I was doing. But whenever I got somewhere and didn't know where I was going next, and you sit there, you spend the night in the back of your truck and you're hanging out, and you just, after about 24 hours of that, I'd hit the road and I'd head home. And that's not the right way to do it. That's what I was saying. Like you just got to stay gone till you get back home.
Yep. I hear you. So you were doing landscaping, lawn care, all of that. Like, what was the transition into owning and starting Botts Grading?
Well, so I grew up around heavy equipment, really. My grandfather died when I was young, but he owned industrial landscape here in Shelby, and he done a lot of hydro seeding. He was the first guy around here, private company, to own a hydro seeder, and uh, he done a ton of work for Duke Energy, Earnhardt Grading, Burns and Spangler, an old heavy civil contractor here from Shelby, and so my dad and my uncle always done it their whole life, even after my grandfather passed away. And then my mom's brother as well owned a pretty big civil grading company before he passed away, and just kind of always had an interest in it, and
Yep.
as I got older, I feel like a lot of people that's in grading start out cutting grass. And anyway, it was just kind of a pipe dream. It's expensive to get into this, and it's really something I never thought I would be able to do from that standpoint. And I guess about a year and a half, late 2014, early 2015. I was like, man, I got to change. I didn't like where I was at in life with my job. It was just, nobody that works for the state makes good money. And it wasn't even really the money. It was just the people. It was the people I was around. Not every one of them, but a lot of them just negative and just put me in a spot. I hated waking up in the morning. And I was like, I'm 21. If I'm ever going to try to do this, like, I got to go now. Like, I know there's going to be long days, long nights. I know there's going to be 7-day weeks. And I had been dating my now wife at the time for a while. And I just told her, I said, if I'm going to try this, it's got to happen before we're raising a family. It's going to happen before I'm worried about getting home to be there for you every night, or to be there with the kids as much as I can. And really, that was one of my main reasons to try to do it. My dad's always been involved in my life, but not just like there every day. He's a bad alcoholic, love him to death, but it's just the truth of the matter. And so I wanted to be different. I wanted to be available. And I knew that to do that, I had to get going before I, I had kids. And so, got fed up. I started trying. And I started trying to buy a dump truck, and I couldn't get a loan. And so it ended up, after about 10 months of trying to do that, I was like, well, look, I'll get a 3,500 and a gooseneck trailer, and then I can move a skid steer with that. So that's really kind of how it got started, and just grown from there. So
That's awesome, man. So how long so we're summer 2017, how long until you had to hire your first employee?
so 2017, I got married in the fall of 2018. And so I guess it was the summer of 2019, I hired my first guy in June. I had to fire him in like 2 months. It was just not a disaster, but just, man, it was me. I mean, and I'm still learning, but you really don't understand like running a business, like, legitimately, and having expectations for other people. Like, the buck stops with me, and I was way too lax. And it was a little bit of a fault of his, but in reality, and today, like, if he'd have come to work for me today, we'd have had a couple of in-depth conversations before it ever got to the point that it got to that quick. But you learn, and I think I learned way more from that experience than he did. So ironically, my dad called me like right after he got fired and was like, look, I need some help. And I said, well, I ain't going to help you without you working for it. And so my dad actually come to work for me, and he worked for me for almost 2 years. And then that was summer of 2019. So then it was kind of, I don't mean it to be bad, but I was kind of back by myself, come that fall. And dad helped, but he liked to make a lot of excuses and stuff, but I was trying to help him out. And anyway, so then COVID hit 2020, and a company that I have a really good relationship with, they're a local utility company, Two Brothers Utilities. It's two men that own it, and they both have kids that work in the company. Well, one of them was still in high school at the time, and because of COVID, their company was kind of put on clamps, and he didn't have anything for his son that was in high school to be doing. So then, March, April, whenever they shut the schools down, I was like, hey, if you want to work, I can use you. And so he come and started helping me. He ended up working for me for a year and a half till he graduated high school. And then July, I hired another guy. So 2019 into 2020, I went from just me to four guys, including myself, for a while. And then about the same time, my dad and Seth went to work for his dad, and dad quit working. So back down to two guys, and then it was back down to, or it was back up to, those long 70-hour weeks every week, just working your fingers to the bone, spinning your wheels, really not getting anywhere faster. So
that's crazy, man. That's crazy. How did you settle on your business name? I mean, like most people just be like Bots Excavating or Land Management. They want to be broad, and like you went really tight with grading.
Yeah, well, I just, that was what I wanted to do. And I actually, when I first started, I formed my LLC as Bots Hauling. And I know it sounds crazy, but I didn't want to be Bots Grading. And in the beginning, I wasn't doing any grading, and I know you can advertise it whatever you want, but I try to be pretty thorough. But I just, I wanted to do grading, I wanted to be known for moving dirt. And even though in the beginning, heck, I was cleaning up mulberry bushes in people's backyards or fig trees. I mean, I did whatever it was to make $1. But at the end of the day, like I knew where I wanted to go. And, I just think that, land management or this or that. But I think at the end of the day, your brand means a lot. And when you build that brand and people recognize that brand, they know what they're getting. Grading typically entails a lot of things to do with dirt work, from clearing to site development to utilities, and it's just, I felt like that was the best blanket statement or company name to use because that's really where I wanted to be.
Yeah. I think it's fantastic. And, everyone I know that has their business name like tied to a specific type of service, kind of more of a niche than broad, they're busy.
Yeah.
They're busy. Well,
I've always just said, personally, my opinion is the old saying is, jack of all trades. But the full saying is jack of all trades, master of none. But a jack of all trades is better than a master of one. And, we'll do anything. But at the end of the day, I would say our two things is grading and stormwater work, and we've kind of established ourselves here in the local, area as we do a lot of municipality stormwater work and stuff of that nature. So, I think, at the end of the day, it's regardless of what you're doing, when you cement your brand, I think you got to stick with it. And so I wanted to do something in the beginning to stick with what my plan was, whether I was there then or not.
Okay. Yeah, because I was looking at your website earlier, and you're listing out commercial site work and some grading services, obviously stormwater, and you've also got like demo and land clearing in there. I'm a firm believer that you're probably doing 80% of your work in one or two of those services, and the other ones are you'll do them, but you're not getting as many calls. So would you say it's like the stormwater, and then is it more commercial site work or residential for grading services?
Well, I mean, in a perfect world, it would be the commercial. And I know like residential to me, I mean, these big tract home developments, I know that that's considered residential work, but I mean, it's more of a commercial site.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to be more involved in the commercial all the time. That's where I know I need to be. But I do still take on residential jobs. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to price a job to make money. So if Miss Susan calls down the road and she needs her driveway repaired, I mean, chances are I'm probably not going to get that job because I'm not your weekend warrior out here on a skid steer. And that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, you kind of lose out on some of that cash flow stuff. And so that's kind of what, when it gets in, the thick of it with the commercial side is you really have to be on your P's and Q's when you're bidding these jobs by the unit, and you're bidding these jobs against companies that's been doing this 3 times as long as you. And so,
Yeah.
I'm not going to turn down a residential job. I may price myself out of it, but I'm not opposed to it. And honestly, thankfully, we had some residential work lined up this winter. I mean, 2024 was a phenomenal year. But from August on, I think I bid 15 or 16 jobs and won one. So it's, those residential jobs, I had people willing to wait on me, pay dividends because it helped propel me through the winter.
Yep. So, I mean, I don't know what your estimates look like. I don't know what your sales process or any of that. But I mean, the way you took extreme ownership with that first employee, I would challenge you to do that. Like, what parts of the process and what value do you provide or guarantees do you give that if a customer asked for, you would say, yes, of course, that you're not displaying to show your value to the customer, whether it be, especially in the estimate?
Well, I guess to answer your question the way I understood, what we're going to provide is a job that when we come in and we give an estimate, you're getting the same brand behind you, the same one that's willing to put himself out on the line and promote is the same one that's willing to stand behind the job if something goes wrong. And,
And that's what
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and that's what I'm getting at too. Like, I feel like that with guys that have a focus on commercial work, I find that they lose more residential work than win. And it's
Right.
because they write their estimates as if Miss Susan knows what crusher run is.
Right.
You've got to write, like you've got to approach the whole process completely different, because now you're selling on need and emotion, not time, ROI, and project development, right? So like the problems are completely different. And it's really a completely different process when you're bidding commercial versus residential.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's what I try to do. End of 2020, I sat down. I try to sit down every 6 months. I figure up my hard cost, and I've got a document I keep on my computer that tells me, this costs this. I break it down. I factor for a year. I factor in rain days. I factor in everything, and then, so, at the end of the day, I know what I've got to make. And so with these people, like the residential side of things, that's why I do get a lot of no's. But I also, when I sat down in 2020 and started that, the number one area that I felt I was losing money was I just shoot from the hip to these residential customers. I go out and look at a job and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm just running numbers through my mind, and I forget about this or I forget about that. And then, I've gave you a price, and unless something ungodly goes wrong, we hit bad dirt, we hit rock. Hey, I'm a man of my word. I'm going to do that job for what I told you. And so what I started doing was I started coming home. I take notes while I was out there. I got some scratch pads made with my business name on it, try to look professional coming out, take notes. I get home and I just kind of run the job through my head. And, hey, we're going to get there. We're going to mobilize in. we're going to do this and this and this. Then we'll put the pipe in. Then we'll haul in dirt, then stone, whatever. I just play it through my head and I kind of write it out. And then I figure time, I figure materials. Well, then I said, well, if I'm going to go through all that, I'm going to also send an itemized estimate. And then when I send this itemized estimate, it can kind of be an Achilles heel. It can help you or it can hurt you. But I've built this brand and I'm willing to stand behind things. And I would rather say, hey, instead of just here's you a blanket price, I thought this was going to take 10 loads of dirt and it took 8. I had a unit cost of this. You agreed on a unit cost job and I'm going to knock X amount of dollars off this price. But if we hit bad dirt, then, hey, this dirt coming in is going to be X amount of dollars a load and we're just going to have to see how much we got to dig out, So I started breaking down my pricing and it brought a lot of questions from the residential commercials. Hey, what is mobilization? What is this? What is that? But it also brought transparency to be able to have those conversations with them without them just saying, well, dang, what am I paying for? You're crazy. You're expensive or this. So again, it's a two-edged sword, but I felt like that was the best thing that I done was sit down, figure out where I was losing money, and where I was losing that money was shooting from the hip. And then I start doing a job, and next thing you know, I've left $600 worth of materials out of the job, or didn't think about doing this, and so that's I guess that's the best way to answer that question. I don't know.
Yep, we've just found that you've got to go through the process. You can't skip the steps of your estimating, right? You learn that the hard way. But we can wrap that package in a different wrapping paper for a residential customer, right? If you know your hard costs and your labor and your time, and you should go through that process. But then we can just promote hey, we'll be here at this time. We're going to install this pipe. This pipe is used for this reason. This is why we use it. And you almost use it as an educational tool. Exactly. And you just list out all the steps, all the processes. Don't put mobilization and I always tell people, build it like your line item, but just don't put a price on anything. And you're just creating value. So when they see the number at the bottom, they go, wow, that's expensive, but man, we get a lot for it, right? We're making that number smaller by adding all the value.
Right.
And my number one key, Michael, is you write it for a fourth grader, man. Instruction manuals are written at a fourth grade reading level for a reason.
Yeah, I know. That's like a dang, a residential estimate. I feel like I make it 3 times as detailed as a commercial one, because you're trying to make the customer understand. And I think that's for me, matter of fact, about 2 weeks ago, I got a phone call from an HOA here. They had a big stormwater problem going on in somebody's backyard. The HOA is responsible for it. It's about 6.5 foot deep storm drain, 18 inches, just smashed. Gonna have to replace about 50 foot, 48, 50 foot. And, I gave them a price. I mean, it wasn't really a cheap price. It was really expensive compared to the guy that washes houses and cuts grass that gave him a price that he could fix it. And she calls me and she's like, hey, you come out here, you walked us through, you got down in the catch basin, you crawled through the pipe, and I took a video, showed them. She's like, I know that you're going to do this right, but we just can't afford it, and I get that. But that's where I feel like I have to be with my residential customers, because since I have taken that step into the commercial world, and I am a firm believer in letting people know what they're spending money on, because money does not grow trees. So I try to be very straightforward with everything, but it also, it does come with a price, to do things the right way and run a legitimate business and not just fly by night.
Yep. And I this is what I'll tell you. My best advice is not everyone is your customer.
That's right.
You've got to have your process. You've got to have your cost, your profit margins. And if people are like, that's too expensive, then they're not your customer.
That's right. I've really been tuned in to Keaton Turner's podcast the last couple months, the Per Diem podcast, and he said something on there that really resonated well, and it was, the quantity of your no's helps the quality of your yeses, and it is 100% true.
Absolutely. There's some, I reference this all the time, but like Pareto's rule, he was a philosopher. It's the 80-20 rule, right? Like 80% of your profits is going to come from 20% of your clients.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
80% of your headaches is going to come from 20% of your clients. And if you can figure out the personality types, the similarities in the customers that are in the bottom 20%,
oh yeah,
and just quit servicing them because they eat up all of your time.
that's right. Well, it's kind of like, again, as a business owner, it is hard to tell someone no, but at the same time, you can put a price on it to make it worth that headache or worth that, and they can either take it or leave it. And most of the time they leave it, but because, because what I realize is the ones that really aren't your customer, typically they're the ones that's knocking your price. You roll up to the country club and you give them a quote and they're nickel and diming you to death, and it takes them 2-3 months to pay you or whatever, and then you go to a person you're worried they're not going to be able to afford it, they give you cash and a bag of veggies out of their garden. I mean, it's just the good customers are the good customers, and there is no doubt about that.
Amen, man. Amen. Boy, that was a nice little tangent we just got off on. I like that one.
Yeah, I'm bad about that. You got to keep me on.
Yeah, it was cool. And we talked about like being a man of your word, being transparent, your family and all that. And like one of the things you said to us before the show was like, you could not imagine owning and operating your business without God in your life. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I definitely a Christian. Could not do this without God. I think faith and business have a lot of parallels. Faith, it tells us, you can't be lukewarm. It'll tell you when you get to heaven that Jesus will tell you, depart from me, I never knew you, and it's kind of like what I've learned with business. You're either growing or you're dying. You can't be 1 foot in. You can't be lukewarm. You have to go all in. You have to put everything you have into it. And I think, with faith, like if you're going to live as true as you can to God's word and obey his commandments, and none of us are perfect, but if you're going to try your best to do that, you're an outcast. You're an outcast from society. And in business, if you're going to do it the right way, if you're going to have all the insurance, if you're going to pay your guys well, if you're not going to reap all the rewards of it, if you're going to be that guy, it's the same way. You can't, to me, operate like that. And I mean, there's just countless times, I could tell you about. I mean, honestly, this past winter, like it was a thing where I felt like God was really working on me, because it was, my 2024 was the best year my business has ever had by over double, and that was my goal. I wanted to double that. And then from August on, and still from August on, I won one commercial job, and, but it's just, you take it as a test of faith. I mean, I tithe what my business makes, and I'll never forget, I hadn't been in business but about a year, and got up on Sunday morning fixing to go to church, and I sat down, and if I wrote this tithe check, I didn't have any work lined up, and if I wrote this tithe check, my bills that were due that week, I didn't have the money to do it. I didn't have the money to make those bills get those bills paid. But I said, I'm going to be a steward of God's word, and I'm going to be faithful to him. And Monday morning got a phone call about a job. It's just, to me, faith is just unparalleled in life and paralleled with business. Greed can take over. There's no doubt. And I think, with money, things seem to be easier without God. And that's where I think, he can really reel you back in. And he can, hold you accountable and keep you right where you need to be if you allow him.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man, that's a unique take, and one that I found very interesting, how you paralleled business ownership to Christianity faith. And as you spoke, I'm like, man, that makes total sense. Like, you can't be 1 foot in and say that you're a Christian, right? Like, you're either in or you're out.
Right.
And like with business, I'm like, it's the same way, right? Like, if you're dabbling in owning a business, then you're going to be failing very quickly.
That's right. And a lot of times, I kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent there again, but like what I was going to say is, with Christianity and with trying to live right, again, you're not perfect, but when you try to live right and do right, you're going to be an outcast. And when you do business and you try to do it the right way, people might think that you're arrogant or that you're stuck up or that you're obsessed, or you might be a Bible beater because you're trying to do right. But people also have perceptions of you when you're a business owner, that you're obsessed or that you're consumed or that this, but they just do not understand what it takes mentally to be locked in and developing and growing a business, and what it takes from a time perspective and a commitment. So it's like people look at you and say, oh, you're stuck up or you've changed or you don't just call me anymore. But at the end of the day, they don't understand what it takes to maintain.
Well, Michael, I'm gonna challenge your perspective on that, because like my answer to that person would be like, you are correct. I continue to grow as a human being, and you are comfortable where you're at, and I can't live there anymore.
Amen. And my grandpa used to tell me all the time, if you're the smartest person in the room, you'll soon be the dumbest, and he said it's not that you have to change your friend group, but you should always be trying to sit down with people that's going to make you grow as a person.
Yeah, and you need to have friends that want to elevate you, not drag you down. Because like what we find is that people, like you said, you've changed, you don't call, you work too much, man, you got to slow down. They're just dragging you down to their level so that they're comfortable with their level of contentment. Because they're not comfortable putting themselves out there to go do the work, put their business on the line and move forward. So they, to not feel insecure and to not feel unworthy, they want to drag you back to their level so they're comfortable.
That's right. And to me, I mean, just to put it short and sweet, that's laziness. It's a lot of people say they don't care to have this, or they don't care to have nice things, or they don't care to go here, do that. And a lot of times it's just a cover for they're too lazy to do what it takes to get that. And they claim contentment, but it's really a laziness. And that's what I feel like, and nothing.
Now, I would actually go deeper and peel an extra layer off that onion, Michael. Like it gets promoted as laziness, but and I would guarantee you, if you actually could get someone to open up and talk to you, a majority of those people, it's fear of success.
Oh yeah.
Because if I get it, then I got to maintain it.
That's right.
If I get it and I've never had it, I don't know what to do with it. Like it's just, I would say fear of success cripples more people than fear of failure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it goes back to, people do not understand what it takes to really run a successful business, and it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, I'm not saying I've got it whipped. I try to learn every day, and I always want to learn. But I have learned a lot. Thankful for mentors, thankful for lots of people. But, you can't be scared. I mean, it goes back to, kind of the 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean, you got to go. That's all there is to it.
As men, obviously this is just an observation because we have no firsthand experience at it, but I kind of equate owning a business to like motherhood, right? Like first time child, man, you got to be scared. You know what you're doing. You never had a kid, but they figure it out and they're usually really good at it.
Absolutely.
Because they commit to it, right? So like if you're going to do a business, you have to commit to it. It's the discipline of the daily habits that make people successful or failures in business.
I mean, discipline is 100% it, and why you hit on the motherhood and stuff. I mean, that's another key thing. I mean, if you have to have a wife that is 10 toes behind you, they have to be as committed to to that business as you, or they will not. It will create turmoil in your marriage. And that is another thing that I could not be more thankful for, is my beautiful wife and what she does for our family, and to allow me to do what I need to do. And I try to create a family first environment. It's important to me. And so I make it important to my guys. And so, we try not to work late, and I try to get home, but it's still coming home, doing office work, doing this, doing that, and so I couldn't do it without that. But, didn't mean to get off on that tangent, but it
No,
is.
man, I love it.
It's
I love it.
definitely, it's something that you got to have, and that goes a really long way.
Speaking of your wife, her name's Emily, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I saw her artistic side coming out with those really cool freehand banners she's making for parties and events, and that's pretty neat.
Yeah, she's trying to. She wants to try to save up a little money this year on the side, just kind of doing her own little thing, and she's dabbled in little stuff here and there, but she just likes sitting down at the dining room table at night after the kids go to bed. And I'll be honest with you, she's been doing it for a couple months, but really heavily for about the last month. And I've been very shocked how busy she's staying. She's making sometimes 5 and 6 a week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And they're pretty cool. I mean, they're pretty detailed. It's all freehand and colored in, and they were neat.
Yeah, she'll just have somebody, like whoever's wanting it, they'll send her a picture of what they're wanting, and she'll just lay her phone on the table and just trace it out.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah. So it's like,
yeah, I think it is important. Yeah, but you're right, though. It is 100% important that it is, even though if a wife is not involved in the day-to-day of the business or helping with the books, it's still a team business, because they have to be supportive. They have to understand the goal. You've got to talk to them with the big dreams, the small details, and keep them in, because if they're uncertain, then they create uncertainty in other areas of your life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's right. I mean, because I'm reading a book right now from Corey Carlson, Win at Home First. And I mean, it's really opened my eyes a lot. I'm about halfway through it, and it's just, it is so true about, you got to take care of the home front. And if you don't, it affects work. I mean, we built a house last year, and I was out here late. I wired it myself. I plumbed it myself. And so it was like I could tell how much it was affecting work to an extent, because I had to meet deadlines here as well as at work. And so it's like you neglect the family and the business is better. If you neglect the business, the family is better. And there is no balance. It's just about doing everything in your power with that discipline that you talked about, that when it sucks, when you don't want to do it, when things aren't easy, when everything seems to be going wrong that week, you just got to keep pressing. You got to keep moving and keep your head down and keep going.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it was probably 12 years ago. I was helping a friend with a PowerPoint presentation, and they weren't very good with computers. And one of the diagrams she had was like a pie chart, and I believe it had like 6 slices in the circle.
Uh-huh.
And it was like spirituality, health, fitness, family relationships, friends, finances. And like you could really do it with anything. But the diagram was meant to show you that if you allow one of those pieces to get really out of balance, like there's the butterfly effect, and it affects all other 5 areas of your life.
Absolutely.
In fact, it was so powerful that my habit of doing it, my discipline's off, but I actually created a daily tracker for myself, and it had 4 categories: health, wealth, business, relationships. And I was like a daily check-in to be like, hey, how do I feel about my relationship with Tracy? And I'm like, God, we haven't really spent a lot of quality time together the last week. I don't feel great about that. So now I need to make that a priority this weekend. Right.
Yeah.
So the goal was to catch it early so it doesn't become the big crack in the foundation, whether it's your finances, your business, your personal health, or your relationships.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a fact. And like I say, it's going to be hard for it to be balanced, but it's about understanding when that, in your instance, talking about the pie, when that one piece gets a little bigger because you have to handle what you have to handle.
Yep.
You gotta correct it. You gotta try to
But
swing it back. It's ever moving sizes. It's ever moving, amounts, but it's about giving your best to all as much as you
but I
can.
think it's also comes down to like being aware, right?
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
we don't want to do things blindly and go, shit, that really affected other parts of my life because I wasn't paying attention to it. And my
Hmm.
example for that is when we launched Throttled Up Marketing in December, I cognitively made the decision that I wanted to use my mornings to build this business.
Hmm.
So I stopped going to the gym because that was 2 hours of my day that I could. But I made a concerted decision
Right.
to give that up for a while. I didn't just let it happen and then go, oh man, I suck. I'm like, no, I need to take a break and I shouldn't. But for me, that was my justification. I'm like, that's 6 to 8 a.m. is
Yeah.
so valuable because I don't get any emails. I don't get any phone calls. I don't get any team messages. And like I can build stuff for the business to grow so we can hand it off and delegate it to other team members. So I made the decision for a few months to take a break from the gym in the mornings. And I said I'd do it in the afternoon, which we all know never happens.
Yeah.
But the key though for me was it was my choice. It didn't just happen without me being aware of it.
Right. Yeah. No, that's right. It's being intentional. It goes a long way.
It sure does, man. It sure does. What's your plans for? So you doubled your business last year. What's your plans this year? What's your high level roadmap to hit your goals?
If I'm being really honest, I'd really like to double again this year. I mean, not. I know that sounds kind of greedy, but I'm 35 now, and I mean, I'm sorry, I'm 30 now, and if I could really work hard, really push for these next 5 or 10 years, and see, at 35 or 40, hey, I mean, I don't have any aspirations to get massive, but again, if I could continue a full 12 months of what we was doing last year, I don't see why we can't do it.
I
Add some
I
key pieces, add some.
Yeah, I don't know your numbers, your equipment, your capabilities, and all that, but I find that especially when you start that skyrocketing journey, that doubling is very achievable. Maybe
Oh
if you
yeah,
do double
yeah,
this year, I doubt doubling in 2026 is achievable, right? Like there reaches a point where it becomes percentages, not X's, not a 1X, 2X. But at the
correct.
beginning, I mean, I think you should always shoot for the moon because even if you miss, you land in the stars.
Well, that's right. And I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta, I mean, you gotta really look at the data. I mean, real numbers don't lie, and if you're wanting to double, I kind of, the thing that worries me is like, well, dang, I got 10 bids out right now. What if they all call me? What if they all call me?
Yeah.
But you have to really look at what you're being awarded. Like if you typically get awarded 30%, then you don't you don't make up that number by doubling your your operating costs. You don't, I mean, not operating, but your bid cost. You don't make up that number in profit. If you're
Right.
awarded 30 and you want to double your business, then you better bid twice as many jobs, and so with that comes investing in people and, in equipment to be as efficient as you can to get jobs done and get on to the next one.
And then I mean, I think a lot of guys like they hear the word, I want to double and they get,
Mhm.
that they get the star eyes, are excited. Like, yeah, I'm going to double my business this year. And I always
Right.
like to just like throw a little disclaimer out there. And I'm like, listen, doubling revenue and doubling profit are not the same thing.
Absolutely.
Right. Like you need and if doubling your revenue so that you can spend the additional profit on capital investments and you're actually going to lose profit because of your investment in the business, just be aware
Mhm.
of that goal. Right. But
Right.
if it's getting down to like, hey, I took home 150, 200 grand this year. I want to take home 400 grand next year. You don't need to double your revenue. Like
Right.
you just
That's
got to
right.
look at efficiencies and expenditures, and debt payoff, because all of that could double your profit without increasing your revenue 30%.
That's right. Yeah. And I just, for me personally, starting from scratch and not having, any backing financially or nothing like that, it is just, I guess it's kind of one of those deals where why get into commercial? Well, why not? If I have the equipment to do it and I can bid on a job that's a black and white plan, that's apple to apple, that I'm not worried about Jimmy down the road undercutting me and going through the hassle, that we can do this. Well, if I've got the equipment, why let it sit? Why work that equipment 60% of the time? Let's bust it out. Let's take the same equipment that we have, if we need to add a piece or two, and let's maximize our capabilities and our opportunities. And that would allow me to maximize my potential to my Lord help me, employees, to be able to provide for them and give them what they need, and for me to give back to my guys bonuses and take good care of them. And it's just, if my off-road truck is sitting out here and it's not doing anything, well, okay, it's paid for, but it still could be somewhere making money. I mean, if it's paid for just because it's paid for and it's sitting
Don't
there,
mean
I could have that
right.
cash. I could have that cash sitting in the bank.
Yep.
So you need to utilize what you have, and I think really that is where I'm at from a cash flow perspective. In all seriousness, it is about utilizing the equipment that you have 100% of the time, or as close to it as possible, to achieve your goals. And that, to me, is going to double about what I made last year.
That's awesome. Yeah, because so at the end of the day, your actual goal is machine utilization.
Correct.
And the byproduct is going to be an increase in revenue and profits.
Right. That's right.
So
And
I
all
love
that
that.
falls back, really, I mean, if you don't have the guys to do that, you might as well sell the equipment. You can go buy all the equipment in the world. You can go the newest, the baddest. But at the end of the day, it's about not having a butt in the seat, but having the right butt in the seat.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What's your process for hiring, since we're talking about that? Like, how do you know it's the right butt in the seat in your process?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I typically just put out on social media. It's where I've had the best luck. I've not got a massive following by any stretch of the imagination, but as far as local, I do. And I mean, I've been blessed, and I feel like I've built a name, a recognizable name in our area, and I get a lot of just cold phone calls. Hey, are you hiring? But for me, it's putting out a filler. I usually try to give it a couple of weeks. I don't try to rush things like that. I don't think you can. I think if you rush those decisions, you make mistakes.
I agree.
Made one a couple weeks ago, a month ago. I was going to hire a driver, and it was nothing against him. He said he needed more money, and I really wanted to pay. I had heard some really good things about him, and offered him a job, and it ended. And as soon as I did, I mean, within 5 minutes, I just felt like this gut punch. It was honestly like a conviction from God. Like, what are you doing? I mean, you have not ever done this without prayer, and so I think it's about giving time. One of my guys, Shane, I mean, when I hired him, he was the last guy to reach out to me. And, I think it's about just giving time and kind of keeping notes. Hey, well, everybody talks about what they can do, and everybody's a lot better on paper than they usually are. And so I think it's just about taking it, making some phone calls, checking back on people, and seeing, what are their tendencies.
I was just going to say, let's dive a little bit deeper. So like you figured out a guy that you want to actually talk to about the opportunity.
All right.
Like, how do you go through that to determine if you're going to have a good feeling or a gut punch at the, like, if you hire this person?
Well, I mean, again, I think that goes back to prayer. I mean, I'm not one of these people. I've never had God, verbally. I've never had that talk from him. But I just think you get a peace about it. I think you talk to somebody and running a business. Or, I mean, it don't matter if you run a business. When you meet somebody, you learn how to read people. You learn like, hey, are they just blowing smoke, or are they? You learn to read that. You learn to understand who's real and who's not. And I do. I mean, I know it's probably not exactly what you wanted to hear, but I do. I genuinely just pray about it, and it
But
gives me a peace about it.
I feel like, yeah, I think I gave you a way too broad of a question.
Yeah.
So
Maybe.
when you're interviewing someone, like, do you ask a lot of questions about their personal life and their hobbies and like their family, or are you strictly, can you run an excavator? Do you know what a grade stick is? Do you know how to operate GPS?
Right. Well, I mean, I think I'm a believer in you let people tell or tell on themselves. So I
Love
kind of
that.
I like to see. I want to hear what people have to say without me asking them questions. I do care about family. I do care about home life. I do care about their kids. I care about whatever, but a lot of people will give me the feeling I need without ever asking them one question. So I kind of, hey, what are you looking for? What are you looking for in a job? Well, if they're talking about right off the bat that, well, I got drama with my girlfriend, or I got this, I mean, okay, I'm going to be honest. Most of the time, I'm going to be a man. I'm going to finish this conversation, but that right there is overriding your mind.
We're done.
Yeah. So it's like, again, people will tell, but people will tell on themselves. And so I kind of let them dive in. It's kind of like selling a job. I go out, I introduce myself, like to talk to people, tell them a little bit about us, and then I let them do the talking. And if somebody comes up to me and they talk for 45 minutes and tell me everything they can and can't do and this and that, I mean, I don't know. If you're confident in what you can do, you don't have to sell it.
Yep.
So
Yeah. It's, I mean,
that would be like my first thing. So if that marks you off the list, then yeah, I'm going to talk to you, ask you whatever. But it's not. I mean, it's a genuine ask, but I know it's not going any farther. But then from there, it is. Hey, well, what can you bring to the table? What are your goals? Where do you want to be? Like what? I mean, because you have to be goal oriented. You have to be reaching for that next thing. And whether you're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, I need those people in my business that's goal oriented, that want to grow. I do the best I can to take care of my guys, but I can't give you something and then expect something out of you. So what are you going to do? At the end of the day, business is about making money. What are you going to do to make this company money? Be efficient, be safe, be here on a daily basis, not want to be off every week, not call in sick every week. I think you get into that after, or I do. I let them get into that after they tell me all about themselves or tell on themselves.
yeah. I just love that. I think more business owners, and I probably should do a little refresh on it, but studying emotional intelligence and learning soft skills, because running a machine and any of the technology or understanding slope, grade, like all teachable.
That's correct.
All teachable. But somebody's emotional intelligence, they either got it or they don't. And if you bring, like you talked about, right? You bring a guy that has drama with his girlfriend, he's probably going to bring drama to the workforce.
That's right.
Right?
That's
like chaos follows chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
you
no,
know?
that's, no, I think, it can't always be a people hire. And I say that like it can't always, like, that's one thing, like I'm telling myself right now, like if I'm going to really go, then, I can't always just have such strict standards. Like if you work for me, one of the biggest things that I will say is like, I want you to approach a customer the same way I would. Like, I want you to have the same, like you fly hot and you cuss out a customer, you're gone. Like that is not, I don't cuss people. And you do that with my name on your shirt, with my representation, you're done. And it's not that I think I'm better than you, it's that we're all professionals. And, you know, that's something that I struggle with is like if we're gonna grow, can I loosen that rope just a little bit? Can I let that guard down? Or should I just, it's harder to hire people that always align, and it's like, do you
It,
do you hold true to that to the core, or do you, if they're really, really, really good at what they do, you not let a little bit slide? Like, I don't mean cussing somebody out or something, but
yeah,
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of
I'm
a
with you.
fine.
I mean, my take on that, and for me, I know what my core values are.
Hmm.
And if somebody has like similar core values, and even if they're a little rough around the edges, like it's my job then to help them improve as a person.
That's right. And I think that
Right.
kind of goes back into Christianity as well. I mean, you might be that influence that helps them turn that corner.
Mm-hmm. But
If
if they don't have the alignment and values for the business and me, I don't
yeah.
care how great they are at what they do. We're never going to work out. So I don't even hire them.
That's right. Yeah, what I mean? Like, I don't have any tattoos, but if you come to me, I'll tattooed up. I don't care about that.
Right. Don't care.
Morally, ethically, do we think the same? Do we operate the same? At the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
it's just about, again, it's a team. You're only as strong as your weakest link. Again, it's biblical. Your tree, if it's got one bad fruit on it, it says to remove the branch. You don't, because if you don't, it's going to ruin the whole tree. It's going to ruin the team. It's going to ruin the
And
business.
honestly, Mike, it'll ruin the tree if you don't cut it fast enough. Like you'll know.
That's right.
Like I mean, trust me, we've all been there, right? Like, God, this guy's not working out. I really should find somebody to replace him. And then 3 months goes by, 6 months goes by, you're still dealing with the same shit he's giving you every day. And then
Yeah.
and like the rest of the team starts underperforming, and it just starts becoming a snowball cascading effect. And then you finally pull the trigger on it, and your entire team goes, "Oh, thank God."
Yeah, and it's ironic you say that. This morning on a podcast I was listening to, he said, a lot of times people think they're a lot better at their job than what they are, and that. But if you cut them, it's like a breath of fresh air from everybody else because they were the problem, and
Right.
you know your hires are your biggest successes and your biggest mistakes.
It's
Okay.
your biggest asset as a business owner are your employees. And like really like
1000%.
going back to talk about what you said about taking your time hiring, like it's just remember these 4 words. Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's right. I mean, it's at the end of the day, I mean, there's no other way to say it. Your employees are your biggest asset, and you just got to be I'm not going to say careful, but you got to learn how to read people. I mean, if you're not careful, that's when you got to fire somebody fast. But
Mm-hmm.
I guess I always revert back to, you know, I remember being the one in the trenches and out there every day, daylight to dark. So my mentality has kind of always been, if I hire slow and I get the right guy, I don't mind getting back out there until that guy. I don't mind working my finger to the bone, out on the job site until I get that right guy. Hey, we need somebody, but I'm not just going to fill a seat. let's bear down for a couple weeks or a month, whatever this takes. I'll throw you a little bonus. I know it's going to be a little tough, but let's make sure we get the right guy hired before we just put somebody out here and mess up everything.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more, man. That's a strong message. In fact, that's probably a message we should just wrap this thing up on. We've been going for over an hour now, and I want to be respectful of your time, but I love that, man. It's true, man. Building a team is I mean, it's simple and it's really tough at the same time, right? Like, it's as simple as you're building a community, right? Like, there's a reason you go to a specific church and not the one down the street, right? You're part of that congregation. Like, you're building your own community and congregation for your business, and you want to have people that you can help push to reach their goals, that have aspirations, and your values are aligned. And if you just worry about that part of it, like, everything else is teachable. And then your number one guy, right? Like, the day's going to come where he starts being the leader to those underneath him. And it isn't all on the owner's shoulder, right? And then you can start seeing that snowballing, cascading effect around. And it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But it sucks when you don't have it.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And that's one thing that I'll say I've dealt with hard times, but I mean, in all seriousness, I have been extremely blessed from day one, really. I mean, even with that hire I made, I felt like I had a lot to do with that and him being fired. But also, take that out of the equation. I cannot say enough about the help I've had. And I had a young guy come in, and I know we're trying to wrap this up. I'll make it quick, but he is the reason why box grading is what it is. I mean, I owe a lot to him, and he's actually left now. He bought a crane. He started a craning business, and but he was young, hungry, come in 20 years old. He worked for me for a little over 4 years, and I could count on him. I mean, literally for anything, and he wanted it, and I think I threw him to the fire a lot. There was a lot of stuff we done that us two guys did not have any reason to be doing it.
Yep.
And but we done it. We figured out a way, and it's made me better. And I think it's made him understand in his business, hey, sometimes in the business you got to grab a bull by the horns. You got to go in, and so I've been able to hire good guys, and he's been able to put it into the other guys. And then I hired another guy. He's been here about a year and a half, and he's my lead man now. And he come before Jack left, and he's been doing this longer than Jack's been alive. But he respected Jack's authority because he had been here and he knew how we operated. And until Jack went out on his own, he was still my lead man, and now I've still got that same group of guys other than Jack, and it's definitely made life easier. It's allowed me to be able to run a business instead of a job, and that's the biggest. That's
why you're able to do this on a Friday afternoon and not be in a truck.
Yeah, that's right. Now, when we get off here, I'm gonna go pick him up and take him to lunch.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, partner, man, I can't thank you enough for being just so open and honest with us and sharing the good, the nitty, the gritty. And I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation today.
Yeah, man, I really, really enjoyed it too. I appreciate the opportunity, and can't wait to hear it and see how things go. And I love telling stories. I think we need to tell more dirt work stories. I think, this is a great industry to be in, and I think that people ought to hear about it, people ought to see about it, and we ought to give back to the next generation. And the only way that they're going to hear how things will be is if people talk, So I appreciate this opportunity, and hopefully it'll affect somebody else and encourage them, give them some hope, and we can pass it on down the line.
Awesome, man. Great message to end with. So on that note, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, ladies, if you're listening, thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and to the podcast. And reach out to Michael and just say thanks for coming on the show. We're going to link his social media profile down below to his business. So until next Wednesday, keep grinding.